problem?
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I am not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
So you don't think it's stupid anymore?
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense because he actually didn't do much of anything.
But you do want to build some wall.
I want to strengthen our border.
President Trump actually completed more than 500 miles of border wall. Kamala also had this to say.
I mean, I've made many mistakes. And they range from, if you've ever parented a child, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question.
Trump campaign senior advisor Danielle Alvarez says it's a joke to hear Kamala Harris talk about knowing the issues.
There's absolutely no issue she's well versed on. We just saw for over an hour on CNN, Kamala Harris refuse to answer a single question.
Floridians continue to sound the alarm over an abortion ballot initiative this November.
The ballot initiative is known as Amendment 4, and talking about this on AFR's Today's Issues program, author, attorney, and radio personality Jenna Ellis echoed the many concerns out there that the legislature will not be able to make changes if Amendment 4 is approved and abortion becomes a constitutional right in Florida.
It says no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or, and this is the key, because viability isn't even defined and that's problematic, but this is even worse, or when necessary to protect the patient's health as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. So viability just goes out the window, whatever that means to a court that would have to decide it later. But necessary to protect the patient's health determined by a healthcare provider under current Florida law, according to Governor DeSantis, that could mean your massage therapist.
Florida required 60% approval for a ballot initiative to pass, and pro-lifers are not taking things for granted.
It is funded by Planned Parenthood and George Soros.
Various newspapers, including the South Florida Sun-Sentinel, the Tampa Bay Times, Miami Herald, and the Orlando Sentinel, have also endorsed Amendment 4. That's according to Floridians Protecting Freedom, one of the pro-abortion groups urging people to vote yes on Amendment 4. I'm Chris Woodward.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
America is at a crossroads.
We're talking about November 5th. The consequences of this election are broader than even sometimes I grasp.
You only have two options, to vote or not vote.
AFA at Home takes a deep look.
Pray for fair elections, that God's hand is over these elections.
It all impacts you directly. Make your voice heard.
Don't miss this special edition of AFA at Home on AFA Stream. Visit stream.afa.net to sign up today. Stream.afa.net.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network for this Thursday, October the 24th, 2024. Thank you for listening to AFR. Tim Wildman here with Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Howdy, Tim. Good to be here.
And Christopher Woodward.
Good morning.
Coming up this hour, we have Steve Tybor from 8 Days of Hope. Kind of the forgotten story now is the aftermath of the hurricane and how that impacted the people in the 4 or 5 different states. And 8 Days of Hope has been working around the clock, doing their part, what they can do to help out these folks that are still in dire situations. Yeah. So we'll talk to Steve Tybor about that. And then also Dr. Robert Gagnon will be on at 10:45 Central Time, and we're going to talk about the election coming up. And there are it's being reported that a lot of Christians, Fred, are going to sit it out.
Million.
I don't know if I necessarily believe that. We'll have to kind of wait till after the election to find out. But I think that's a huge mistake.
especially in this election.
Monumental.
Yes.
Can't sit out, can't stay at home, and Dr. Robert Gagnon makes that case too, and we're going to talk to him about that coming up in about 45 minutes or so. All right, you are listening to Today's Issues, and Chris, what's our first story today?
Well, Vice President Kamala Harris had a town hall meeting last night on CNN.
She did?
She did.
Yeah.
Anderson Cooper was the moderator. She did
Okay.
take questions from the audience. One of the things that people are focusing on, and understandably so, is an exchange in which Anderson Cooper, I think, held her feet to the fire over her comments about Trump and the border policy and the border wall. Listen, it's a little over a minute, but let's listen to it, clip one.
Under Donald Trump, you criticized the wall more than 50 times. You called it stupid, useless, and a medieval vanity project. Is a border wall stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw is about 2%. And then when it came time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you're agreeing to a
come
bill
on.
that would earmark $650 million to continue building that wall.
I pledge that I am going to bring forward that bipartisan bill. Let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it. Why is there any ideological perspective on this? Let's just fix the problem.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I am not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
So you don't think it's stupid anymore?
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense because he actually didn't do much of anything. I just talked about that wall, right? We just talked about it. He didn't actually do much of anything.
But you do want to build some wall.
I want to strengthen our border.
Is that it?
We edited that down.
Okay, how long?
For time. Well over 2 minutes.
It was so rich, though. I could have listened on and on and on to that logic and reasoning. Listen, she has no plan for the only plan she has for immigration reform, or whatever they call it, is she's going to talk about a pathway to citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, a pathway to citizenship. You'll hear the Democrats say this, and some Republicans too, but you'll hear the Democrats. That's their answer to massive illegal immigration into our country and the problems associated with millions of people coming here. We don't know who they are. They're a burden on cities. And anyway, all they're going to say is we need to create a pathway to citizenship. So their answer to this is just to give everybody citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
That way you don't have illegal citizens, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's her answer. Also, she said good for Anderson Cooper. He said when Donald Trump was in office, you called the wall stupid.
Stupid and medieval.
And medieval.
Yes. Good on Anderson Cooper for asking it tough and reminding her what she said about Donald Trump's policy. Listen, this is why when the polling is done with regards to the major issues voters are thinking about, border security is a huge one. Mm-hmm. And she is losing on it. And what you just heard is the reason she is losing on it. She was asked about, would you continue? She says Donald Trump's approach to this was stupid. All right? Under Donald Trump, 500 miles of border wall were built. And right at the end, too, is the other. She's not interested in building a border wall. This is a woman who doesn't want borders.
No, she doesn't.
She doesn't. That's the bottom line in all of this. She wants, the pathway to citizenship.
Right.
They want. She and Biden. Remember, I keep bringing people back. Joe Biden, when he was candidating to run in 2020, said he would invite a surge on the border. He kept his promise. Mm-hmm. Come one, come all. They told the border agents, open it up.
Right.
Just let them come in.
Right.
And we'll give them a sheet of paper saying when you're supposed to show up and prove that you're claiming assignment.
Or give them a cell phone and show them an app.
Yes, exactly. So come one, come all. And that will be her approach. That's why she is losing big time on this issue. By the way, there's a couple of stories out here this morning to remind people of the dangers that the Harris-Biden administration has caused for this country. I just put up there's a story out by Fox News this morning. Headline: Illegal Chinese immigrant exposed hundreds in Louisiana to rare and dangerous tuberculosis strain. Yesterday, the Attorney General of Louisiana announced he was suing Homeland Security and Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. Why? Because back several months ago, under this administration, a Chinese national entered this country illegally, turned himself over to border security people, and then he was shipped, this Chinese national, to a facility in Louisiana. He's then, of course, and then he's in there with about 100 or 200 other detainees. But what they have just found out is that this Chinese national has a rare, aggressive, and drug-resistant form of tuberculosis, which carries high mortality rates, the lawsuit states. So that is just one example. And then there's this other story which came out in the last 24 hours. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, identifies hundreds of migrants with possible ties to that bloodthirsty Venezuelan gang. So, folks, there's real results to this, and we've talked about before, Tim, what this has meant for communities that are now facing these tens of thousands of these migrants that have been allowed into the country, New York, Chicago, but many other communities, what they're facing. There was a story yesterday of another community. 20,000 migrants have descended on this community. These people don't speak English. They're going into the schools. The teachers can't do anything with them. This is a monumental, huge, absolutely huge problem for this country, and it's all in the lap of Biden and Harris.
No, you got that right, and they listen. All their words and deeds, by all they are, I'm talking about the Harris and Biden.
Yes,
up to this election now, has been pro open borders.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. They have not done it. In fact, they Biden and Harris, when he first went into office, you remember, he was proudly announcing that he was reversing everything that former President Trump had done to stop illegal immigration into America, which had basically stopped it down to a trickle.
Mm-hmm.
Remain in Mexico policy, for example. And Biden and Harris made it clear we're removing all those barriers because they're immoral. People should be able to come into our country if they want to. And he invited a surge.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember Biden and Harris at the debate, both they said, do you want to pay for health care for anyone who comes here illegally? They didn't use the word illegally, undocumented or whatever. And Harris and Biden said, absolutely, we want to pay for all their health care.
Yep.
Remember that?
Yes.
So they're getting what the results of their policies they're having to answer for now. Again, I mean, in this case, it's Harris. Biden doesn't have to answer.
Yes.
Because he's not going to be president anymore. He's not even running. But Harris is having to answer. And even liberal interviewers like, what's his fellow's name?
Anderson Cooper.
Anderson Cooper is showing her hypocrisy and her double talk. And she only said it was stupid, the wall, when Trump was in office, wanted to build it.
Yes.
When now that she is running and she has said, I'm going to have this bipartisan bill that I'm going to sign, which also, as Anderson Cooper pointed out, has money for a wall, he said, is it still stupid? And she wouldn't answer it.
Nope.
She needs to say yes or no.
Nope.
Right.
Not. I mean, she's like, they talk about word salad.
Right.
That's true. Word salad means she just says a bunch of stuff and it doesn't. It's not illogical and it doesn't even make sense or mean anything. That's what she's good at.
Well, and Tim, I believe if she becomes the next president of the United States, she will continue the Biden-Harris policy.
Yeah.
There's no question.
She'll do away with ICE.
Yeah, no more wall will be built. She will take the money from this bill that she keeps promoting all the time. She would take the money for that. She said she would hire more Border Patrol agents, But those Border Patrol agents, will they be?
No, they'll be the welcome wagon.
They'll be the welcome wagon. They'll help with the paperwork.
Yeah, give everybody who crosses over illegally subway coupons, but that's about all they're going to be doing.
Yes.
Listen, her base, just to make clear, the part of the Democratic Party, not all Democrats are as far left. Now, a lot of them, are, but they're not as far left on this issue as Harris is. Some of them are fairly reasonable, some of them. And they get more reasonable near election time. I'm talking about on this massive illegal immigration problem by millions and millions and millions of people coming here. They're here now. We don't know who they are. Anyway, she, the people who she identifies with otherwise during a normal, not a political campaign stop, is the AOC types. Okay, that's who Harris is. Harris is the AOC of the Senate. Okay, she was when she was in the Senate. So don't let her trick you or fool you. She doesn't believe in borders. That's why she called the border wall stupid. That's just the way she's trying to appeal to people in the middle now so that she can get elected president. And it's not working.
Nope.
It's not working for her because she's not standing by her convictions if she has any.
No.
Go ahead.
Now, this next clip is much, much shorter. Regarding her claims of bringing a new way forward and promising to fix it on day one, Anderson Cooper took a moment to ask, why didn't you do these things while you were VP these last 3.5 years? Don't take my word for it. Clip 2.
You've been in the White House for 4 years. You were vice president, not the president. But why wasn't any of that done for the last 4 years?
Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done, that haven't been done, but need to be done. And I'm not going to shy away from saying, hey, these are still problems that we need to fix.
Now, was she referring to the border in that clip?
She was talking to a number of things by that point because she also she called for a national ban on price gouging, which people would call price controls.
That's just pandering to
yes.
people.
There's already laws against price gouging. We don't need a national ban on it.
But it's also scary. She calls it price gouging. Price gouging is things that governments warn about in the case of a hurricane.
Yeah, where people jack up the price of gasoline.
In very hard times.
Or hotel rooms.
Here's what scares me. She calls it price gouging. I believe what she's talking about is national price controls.
Oh, yeah.
There's not price gouging. Price gouging does go on, but only in cases like what you're talking about, Fred.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why she's concerned about price gouging is because we know a couple of things about her. She loves Doritos, and we know from her campaign videos, which are staged, that she buys her Doritos at truck stops. And gas stations generally mark up snack foods. Therefore, she probably thinks Doritos are that much everywhere because she's buying jacked up, high-priced Doritos.
Well, I think she should drop the border talk and just ignore it and appeal to people who do buy Doritos at convenience stores. Like me, you know what I'm saying? I'll listen to that conversation.
Sure.
You want to talk about what kinds of Doritos you want to buy. Listen, this is I'm surprised at Anderson Cooper and CNN. I really am, that they were as tough on her as they were.
But we talked yesterday. There's a bit of a trend that's going on in the last 3 or 4 days. Haley Jackson at NBC had her on, Kamala Harris on, asked some tough questions.
Yeah.
And we're kind of surprised at this, but I do believe the mainstream media understands her credibility is in dire straits right now.
Yeah.
I think she's going to lose.
It would be nice if they had done this the entire time that she's been in office.
Yes.
Because this is what their job is.
Yes.
We shouldn't be surprised.
Yes, I agree with you, Chris, but I don't think she made herself available.
Well, that's true.
Yes.
She's only available now because she has to be.
Joe was on the beach, and she was somewhere.
Remember, they hid her. The White House hid her because she was so bad with the media interviews. And the trend continues here. All right, you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. I'll expand more. I do think Trump's going to win. She's going to lose. That's my own personal opinion. Others may not share that. That's fine, but we're going to talk about that next half hour with Robert Gagnon. But it's going to be very, very close. It appears to be. Listen, there's a lot of great work being done by Christian charities and ministries in response to the hurricanes plural, but certainly Hurricane Helene that went through, what was it, 3 weeks ago or so, and just did such severe damage in Florida and Georgia and North Carolina, Tennessee, and maybe some other places too. But 8 Days of Hope is the ministry almost all of you are familiar with. It's a outreach that we support that helps people in the aftermath of natural disasters, and they go all over the country all year long. And Steve Tybor is the executive director / president, and he joins us now from, I don't know where Steve is today. Steve, good morning. Where are you?
Hey, guys, good morning. I got to look out the window. I think it was North Carolina and Georgia the week before that, and Texas before that. But actually today I'm in Buffalo, New York, my hometown. So
okay.
I'm not on site, but I've been to all the states you just mentioned.
Okay, Steve, tell us about the work of 8 Days of Hope, and give us an overview of what did you see when you went to Georgia and North Carolina and so forth?
You know, Tim, thank you for having me on. We've been doing this. We're starting our 20th year. We started after Katrina. The last 5 weeks, we have deployed more arms of the ministry in 30 days than we do in a typical year. We're on our 22nd deployment of 2024. We started in Perry, Florida, feeding people after Hurricane Helene landed. We set up a rapid response division in Valdosta, Georgia. We were there for almost 3 weeks. Today, as you and I speak, we're still in North Carolina, not far from Asheville, where about 400 volunteers are serving families, tarping the roofs, taking trees off their property, their roofs, gutting out homes that flooded. Flooding's been a big issue. And we've been serving nonstop. And it's amazing because today we're also in South Carolina with our rapid response heavy deployment where we have bobcats and bucket trucks, trained, skilled chainsaw cutters, and they'll be there for the next 2 weeks. So this has been our busiest 30 days ever. And yet our mass feeding team, they went out and fed people. Over 17,000 meals were delivered to families in need through local churches. And it's been a whirlwind, but I'm so proud of the volunteers with 8 Days Hope. They've done an amazing job, and we continue to serve as you and I speak.
Steve, it's Fred here. What did you see when you're in North Carolina? We have seen the images. Is it just as bad or even worse?
You know, it would make, and thank you, because that was the question that Tim asked. I'm sorry. So Hurricane Helene is the one unique storm. You know, Katrina and Harvey, those are the top two of the things that we've seen in our 19 years. But what made Hurricane Helene so unique is the depthness. So, you know, usually you get a hurricane the first 7,500 miles from the shore, you know, mass destruction. As you get further away, you got fences and some shingles have blown off. But the flooding, guys, oh my gosh, the flooding in North Carolina and some of these resort areas, or not resort, rural areas, has just been mind-boggling. You know, we're doing something we've never done before. We're in a town just east of Asheville. Water has been a huge issue. Not cans of water or bottles of water. People showed up in a big way. But the town of Swannanoa, they're not going to have water for 6 weeks. They're entering in their third week of without water. So we went out and found a water truck. It looks like a fuel tanker, but it's clean, fresh water. We set it up at a local church, and people from 6 in the morning till 10 at night are coming by, and they're bringing garbage cans that have, you know, a plastic liner, a plastic bag, a new plastic bag. They're bringing pots and pans, and they're coming for water nonstop. And so sometimes it's the basic, simple things. The need is there, and the need is there in North Carolina, guys. I mean, there's no quick fix here. This is going to be a multiple-year recovery in North Carolina and some other parts as well.
Steve, we're hearing many people don't have shelter. That's a big need right now. Still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tim. You know, we one of our leaders shot a picture the other day of, you know, about 20 families just, you know, staying in tents in an area of their town where, you know, their home has been washed away, and they're looking for, you know, help. They're looking for food and water, and what's the plan. And so, you know, this has been a little disheartening. I mean, we're talking about, I believe, the greatest country in the world, America, and we are now 4 weeks from the disaster, Hurricane Helene, and we haven't even talked about Hurricane Milton, because that presented some additional problems as well. But the need is great. But here's the good news, guys. A lot of ministries, you know, we're one of many. I know we're unique And I'm thankful for the 60,000 volunteers that travel the country with us on a moment's notice. But the church is showing up. And so even though this is a dark time for people that are living in communities that lost loved ones, lost their home, their business, their church, maybe where they went to school, their keepsakes, all their belongings, the church is showing up in a big way. So I applaud other ministries like Samaritan's Purse and Convoy of Hope. We're all doing all we can to help these families. So that is the good news and the silver lining in this storm.
Steve, how can people listening, if they want to, volunteer to help physically? Go somewhere. I know you have a lot of volunteers that listen to American Family Radio, or they want to make a financial contribution to help you in your work. How can people do that?
Well, thank you, Tim. American Family Radio is one of our 20 national partners, and we have a weekly radio show called Hope Reigns every Saturday morning that we share God-sized stories from the mission field. It all starts with prayer, guys. People are like, okay, Steve, really get to the point. That's the point. We need to be praying for the leaders of these towns who have never seen anything like this. Pray for the churches that themselves have suffered mass destruction or some challenges. I talked to a gentleman today. He runs a foster home for kids and a retreat center, and their buildings got destroyed, and he's looking for help. So look for ways that you can connect with ministries like 8 Days of Hope. For us, go to our website, 8dayshope.com, sign up for our email alerts. Maybe you can't go next week or the week after, but maybe you can go on the next storm, to the next community that we go to. And as your point, donate. You're one of our partners. You give financial resources to 8 Days Hope every year, along with our other 19 partners. And so anything donated online at 8dayshope.com, or you can mail a check. Our address is on our website, on our Facebook page. Every dollar that you give will be spent to help out with Hurricane Helene. So thank you guys for your support. We love you, and couldn't do it without you.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. God bless you and your team and your work. Keep it up.
Thank you, brother. Take care. Go Bills.
Yeah, there you go. Steve Tybor. He's a huge, you know that, right?
Yes.
Buffalo Bills fan.
Dedicated.
Yeah. Well, I went to church with Steve for a long time before we moved to Buffalo, back home to Buffalo. And, I'm just going to be honest. I would see him in the parking lot, right before church was over because he had to get home to watch the game. I'm talking about 5 minutes now. Huh? And you might say to yourself, Tim, how do you know this? Weren't you also in the parking lot?
Self-indictment.
We'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Back more than 2,300 years ago, a preacher wrote these words: "My soul is bereft of peace. I have forgotten what happiness is." Well, there are millions of people who are seeking and searching for what the preacher had forgotten: happiness. More than 2,000 years later, another man by the name of Charles Farrar Brown made a famous statement concerning happiness. This is what he said. Now listen carefully, because this is good advice. "Let us all be happy and live within our means," he wrote, "even if we have to borrow the money to do it." And you'd be surprised at the number of people who are pursuing this elusive quality called happiness by following Brown's humorous advice. This statement seems odd, but has a world of truth in it. The most unhappy people in the world are those trying the hardest to be happy. We Americans annually spend billions and billions of dollars searching for this magic, evasive thing called happiness. Dr. Gallup, not the one who's living today, but his father, the fellow who had a way of finding the mood of the public, took a poll on happiness at one time. He found that the most unhappy people were those who frequented the taverns. How odd that seems. I was under the impression that people went to the honky-tonks to have a good time. Could it be by some strange quirk that a good time and deep-seated happiness are not the same thing? The great truth of life is that happiness comes as a byproduct. The best way in the world to miss happiness is to pursue it directly, to go searching for it in every dark bar and every tipping of the glass. Dr. Austin Fox Riggs once said, happiness is a byproduct of successful living. Happiness is a byproduct of holiness, or if you prefer a less religious word, just use the word wholeness. Holiness and wholeness, they both mean the same thing and bring you to the same place. Happiness is the result of an inner state, not outer security. Happiness comes not from without, but from within. Betty Barton, who had been paralyzed because of an automobile accident, once wrote for Life magazine these words: "We are suffocated so with things and with distractions that the real pursuit of happiness is impossible. Happiness is primarily an inner state, an inner achievement." And so it is. Happiness isn't the goal of life. Holiness is. Seek first the kingdom of God, Jesus said. Seek first the kingdom of God. Don't go after happiness or you'll miss it. Seek to do God's will and live by His plan, and happiness will come without your seeking it. This theme of matching happiness and holiness is one as old as the ages. Happy is the man who takes refuge in the Lord, said the psalmist. Jesus, in his Sermon on the Mount, gave 9 ways to be happy. We call them the Beatitudes. You'll find them in the 5th chapter of Matthew in the Bible. I suggest you learn and live them. We spoke of Dr. Gallup in his happiness poll. He also had this observation to make. Our survey showed that the most happy people are those who have had a real religious experience. 'Tis true. Seek first the kingdom. After that comes happiness.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
For He has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son He loves. Colossians 1:13.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Fred, and Chris, thank you for listening to AFR. I said before the break, and we're going to talk about Dr. Robert Gagnon coming up in just a few minutes. He wrote a column. What's the headline for the column, Fred? Do you have it?
Yes. Dear friend, to those choosing to abstain or vote third party in 2024.
Okay.
And basically the thrust is don't abstain.
Right. Don't abstain and third party voting is not effective. So that's what he's going to say. That's what he says. Anyway, I'm going to talk to him about that topic. I wrote a very similar column for our the Stand magazine. So we're going to talk to him about that because we can't have millions and millions of Christians sitting at home and not voting.
Yeah.
Not voting. And so we'll address some of those questions on why those people might feel that way.
Yeah.
Coming up in a few minutes and why you need to go and vote. But anyway, we were talking the if you look at the polls in the various states that are reflected in the Real Clear Politics averages, Trump is ahead in all the swing states now. That hasn't been the case up until the last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And now keep in mind they're all I think within the margin of error. That's typically thought of as 3 percentage points, right?
Right.
But nonetheless, Harris was ahead, and now Trump is ahead in several of those swing states. What are the? Do you have that in front of you, Chris?
I do. The battleground states, according to Real Clear Politics, would be Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. To build off of your point here, the RCP average, where they look at all the polls and try to come up with who's really winning, they now have Harris leading Trump only by 0.2. She's had a bigger lead
Are
here.
you talking about the national?
The national polls, yes.
Well,
so it's looking like it's his election to lose.
But there is a Wall Street Journal poll out this morning on national, and Trump is up 3 points. Mm-hmm. I was listening to an interview this morning with one of the people that runs the Real Clear Politics site, and they were saying what he's saying is the trends right now across the country is in Trump's favor.
Yes.
Now, it's still very close.
Yes.
But the trends, and when you look back at previous elections, when you have somebody this late in the game, and we're only 12 days away from Election Day, when you're seeing these kinds of things, normally that person that's trending on the positive track is going to do well on Election Day, normally. And that is why one of the things that, Democrats are reading all of this too. And that is why that Kamala Harris has moved away from the issues. Now, the reporters are trying to bring her back to, like Anderson Cooper did on the border, et cetera, et cetera. But she has been told by her handlers, your only hope is to demonize Donald Trump every chance you get, which is why yesterday she came out with this Atlantic article.
Yes.
That's, Trump wants Hitler-type generals. And they're quoting 4 anonymous sources in this Atlantic. But that has been denounced as totally untrue.
Yes. Yeah, I can play the audio of Kamala, and then we could segue into a rebuttal from former White House staffer Kayleigh McEnany. Let's begin here. For people that haven't heard about this, retired 4-star General John Kelly, who was one of Donald Trump's White House chiefs of staff, told the Atlantic that supposedly Donald Trump once said he wanted Hitler's kinds of generals, and that's where Kamala Harris went on national television yesterday. It's not a long clip, but it is clip 5.
So yesterday we learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired 4-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States.
Now, someone that worked for Trump that says this is a whole bunch of malarkey is Kayleigh McEnany, who said this on Fox News Channel Clip 8.
The reason my antennas went up last night when I saw the name Jeffrey Goldberg is because I was on a tarmac in September of 2020, and a story popped from him in the Atlantic, and it was the suckers and losers story we have all heard. Within hours, I was able to collect more than a dozen individuals, several who were firsthand sources saying that never happened. My point is, this is based on 4 anonymous sources, 2 weeks before an election,
100%.
disputed by people on the record, and yet it led a CBS News broadcast. What a shame.
She referred to Goldberg in that clip. Jeffrey Goldberg
the reporter.
is the editor of The Atlantic who wrote this story. I don't think The Atlantic talked to Kelly directly. I think they talked to a source who was quoting Kelly on this and quoting Milley. She went on to say, McEnany, that went on to say in that interview, in the response yesterday, she said there were people that Donald Trump hired who he found out very quickly didn't like him. And, Kelly's one of them. Milley is another, General Milley. These are people who didn't like him. And of course, the bottom line is that they are all denying the truth of what Donald Trump supposedly said.
Okay, now, if criticizing Donald Trump hurts your feelings, then you need to quit listening right now, because I'm about to criticize him, okay? Former President Trump, and I praised him a lot, and he's done a lot of great things. With his mouth, he is a loose cannon. It wouldn't surprise me that he said anything. It wouldn't. Now, I do agree with you guys' analysis. Reporters need to have sources and open sources for the way they say that. Donald Trump, when John McCain was running against, or was in the Senate, or running against him, I can't remember what it was. I think it was in the Senate, and he was mad at him, and he said, Trump said, I like prisoners who aren't caught. I like soldiers who aren't caught to be prisoners. That was repulsive to say something like that. You remember that?
Yes.
So he says stuff like that. Trump does. And He called Kayleigh McEnany a globalist. John Kelly, his chief of staff for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
General John Kelly, a chief of staff, 4-star general.
2017
for
to
2
2019.
years. So if Trump hired a man for chief of staff and kept him for 2 years and he didn't know he didn't like him, that says to me that Trump's not very smart then, if that's true. So I don't know what happened between General Kelly and President Trump. I just know that President Trump had a habit of running through people like nobody's business, and there's like 20 people who work for him in his administration who say, who don't like him, and he doesn't like them. So that's a reflection on Trump. I'm sorry, it is. Does that mean I'm not going to vote for him? No. Does that mean he wouldn't be a good president the second term around? No. Does that mean he didn't do some wonderful things as president? No, he did some great things as president. I voted for him when he went up against Biden. But he's got some bad traits that follow him around. And but the good thing for him, I think, is that that this is all baked in. Okay? They got some woman out there now that the Democrats are pulling out in the media to say Trump groped me in 1993. Did you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those.
Other people have it.
You know what? To my point a few minutes ago, the Democrats are going to they're trying to capitalize on this Atlantic article, and on one of the other questions being asked right now. Okay, why did you wait till now? You've known all this for 4 years.
Why did who wait till now?
Why did the campaign wait till now? Why did the Atlantic wait till now to do this story?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's October. They're trying to affect the election.
Yes. So they're talking about things that are 4 years old. Back to the Atlantic article, the people like Kayleigh McEnany and others are saying that Trump, even former Vice President Pence's one of his executives, is saying the allegations made in the Atlantic article are false.
Yeah.
Are false. So specifically, the comments in the Atlantic article are being denied, that he talked about wanting Hitler-like generals.
Well, okay, I agree with you. But Trump has more than once talked in glowing terms about the dictator of China.
He can be his own worst enemy.
Yes.
Well, yeah, he admires him. Have you not heard this?
Oh yeah, he is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'm saying that Trump has said things that suggest that he's pro-authoritarian, and so that gives ammo to the, sorry for the pun there, that gives ammo to the left. When they criticize Trump, they just pull out these quotes like this, and it makes, to the average person, they go, that does sound bad for an American president to say how much he admires the dictator of China. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think Trump has hurt himself and hurts himself with his mouth. It's unnecessary. He doesn't have to do it, but that's just kind of who he is. But I do agree with you totally, Fred, that these stories now that are coming out, a week or two before the election, from the left and from the liberal media, they're just trying to sway public opinion just a little bit so that their person wins, which is Harris.
Yeah. Well, and the timing too is they're hoping that there is no time to refute these reports that come out.
Yeah,
that's why they're jamming it in the last few days.
But don't you think all this is baked in and people already pretty much made up
on his
their mind?
Personality? Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think one more woman saying Trump groped me in 1993 is not going to matter.
Danica Patrick this week on Jesse Waters' show. We aired the clip of her earlier this week saying she was voting for the first time in this election, and oh, by the way, she said she was voting for Trump. She went on to say, look, I realize some people have personality issues with him or concerns, but you're not going out to dinner with him. You know, that was her point. Like, you know,
well, it's going to be one or the other.
Similar things.
It's one of two. It's either going to be Trump or Harris. There is, and we're going to talk to Robert Gagnon. Is he on? Okay. Is Robert on? We're going to talk to him about that because it's a, what do they call it? Not bilateral. You know what I'm talking about when it's down to two?
Yep.
There's a word for it that I've forgotten. All right, joining us right now is Dr. Robert Gagnon. a friend of our ministry for many years, and I asked him an hour ago, "Can you be on?" After I read his blog, and so he said yes. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning.
This is Tim. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, Tim. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate your ministry.
Thank you. Where are you joining us from today, and what's your current role?
I'm joining you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I am currently a visiting professor at Wesley Biblical Seminary.
Yeah, in Jackson, Mississippi.
That's correct.
Yes, but it's an international school, Wesley Biblical Seminary, that AFA and AFR. We've done a lot of promotion for them. It's a strongly evangelical school, training pastors and missionaries and all kinds of folks, Wesley Biblical Seminary. So I was reading your blog on Frank Turek's website. So Frank put it up there. It says, "Dear friend," this is your blog, Robert. "Dear friend," this is the headline, "Dear friend, to those choosing to abstain or vote third party in 2024. And I thought, I agree with what Robert's saying here. So I wanted to have you on. What's your thesis right here? If you can have a thesis in 300-word blog.
Well, very simple. If you're not voting, you're not casting an effective vote against the candidate who's going to do by far the most harm, then effectively it's like handing that candidate a half vote. If normally you vote, in this case, conservative. So you're not supporting the candidate who's more conservative. You're not supporting the candidate who's going to do by far the most harm either. But your failure to vote will contribute to the failure of the more conservative candidate to win the election. So in effect, in this case, the Kamala Harris campaign should send you a thank you card if you decide that you're not going to vote for either candidate.
Yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. There's two considerations. I made this similar point in my column that is hitting out there in the mail now, arriving in people's mailboxes for our magazine, The Stand. Okay? There's two considerations when you vote, especially in a presidential election, seems to me, as Robert is pointing out here. One, how much good can be done by voting for a particular candidate and their agenda and the things that you do agree with them on, which are good for the country. Number two consideration is how bad do we need to stop the terrible ideas that his opponent is promoting? You know what I'm saying? His or her promoting. So oftentimes our fellow Christians who want to say, well, I'm voting between the lesser of two evils. And I want to say, well, that's one way to look at it. But you just did say that there is a candidate that represents less evil, didn't you? Yeah, and
right.
So why wouldn't you support the less evil if one of the two of them are going to win? Go ahead, Robert.
Right. Unless somebody is a masochist or and enjoys pain, or is a sadist and enjoys seeing others suffer, there's simply no reason to not cast a vote against the candidate who's going to do far less harm. And it's not just a case of the lesser evil. To vote for the candidate who's going to do far less harm is a good thing, not a bad thing. It's not an evil. And Trump has done many good things, and his policies in many respects are very good. He's lacking in a number of things. He was not my first choice for the candidate for the Republican Party. DeSantis was. Cruz was in 2016. But nonetheless, compared to the alternative, Clinton back in 2016, Biden in 2020, and now, of course, Harris and Walz, there's no contest. For Harris and Walz, their two great idols are the promotion of unlimited abortion and unlimited oppressive LGBTQ immorality. And their ways of achieving those two objectives are equally heinous because it involves things like suppression of free speech, suppression of free exercise of religion, the promotion of a major illegal immigration scam in order to turn swing states and border states blue, appointment and nomination of justices to the court who have no respect for the integrity of constitutional safeguards for our liberties, attempting to tamper with the court through packing the court and through insisting on term limits. The current term limit that Harris wants would immediately retire 3 conservative justices from the court, and that's the whole reason for it. It's entirely politicized, and in addition, of course, the politicized prosecution of their chief political opponent. Now, these are republic-destroying moves, and they're being done in order to promote these 2 great idols. These 2 great idols that they have are antithetical to 2 central, arguably the most important principles outlined in the creation text that Jesus himself cited as normative for all Christian sexual ethics. Indeed, for all ethics, namely, that God has intentionally designed us as sexual counterparts, male and female. And for this reason, a man may become joined to a woman, the 2 become one flesh. And the design of male and female is integrated in Genesis 1:26 to 27 with their creation in God's image and likeness. So there's an intersection of the 2, which is a way of saying that what we do sexually can either enhance or efface that image bearing. And these are the 2 things that they're attacking, right? What does abortion do? Abortion is the killing of human beings, innocent human beings, made in the image of God. And of course, their promotion of an LGBTQ agenda is aiming at the complete obliteration of a male-female requirement for sexual ethics, or even any understanding of a biological basis for maleness and femaleness as given by their creator. So these 2 idols, and again, they're not ancillary issues, they're not side issues for Harris and Waltz, they are the prime issues on which Harris and Waltz are running. So to cast a vote for them or to fail to cast an effective vote against them is being complicitous to a grave evil in our society. And Christians cannot be morally responsible and engage in such failures.
Robert, Fred here. You've done an excellent job of outlining the differences between the 2 candidates, the key differences between the 2 candidates. And for Christians in particular, why there is a huge chasm between the 2. So what do you say to groups like Evangelicals for Harris? They seem to be saying, overlook all of those things that you just talk about because we don't like Trump's personality.
To them, I would say the prime issue is policy and court appointments.
Yep.
Because those policies expressed in executive orders, in legislation, and in court appointments will carry on a legacy far beyond the tenure of that political candidate and will affect not just small groups, but the entire country and for generations to come. As far as character goes, of course, in the past, like 2006 and before, Trump did lots of horrible things sexually. Fully agree. He has not promoted it since in public. He has apologized for it. There's been no occurrence of any other incident of that sort. Harris also has less than a sparkling character resume behind her. She slept around with Willie Brown for political gain for years, and then, of course, when that was no longer profitable for her, she left for other men. She hardly is concerned with appropriate sexual behavior. She married a man, Doug Emhoff, who had sexual intercourse with their nanny and subsequently slapped a woman who he thought was paying undue attention to another man. This is the man she married, so this is clearly not a major concern for her in her own life. And I suspect it's one reason that they have promoted it recently, but not to the hilt that they might otherwise do. Character flaws, when somebody sees character flaws in a candidate, one has to ask, how does it affect their policy? That is the critical thing. And how does it affect their court appointments? And I've not seen any major effect on Trump with regard to that behavior. Now, he is not as good in promoting the male-female prerequisite for relationships that he should in policy. He at least is against transgender tyranny towards minors, what effectively amounts to state-sponsored child abuse. He's not as good on abortion as we want him to be. He's backtracked on a few things. But you can't compare a man who appointed 3 justices that sent Roe v. Wade and Doe packing to a woman whose one of whose greatest idols is that of promoting abortion for all 9 months, unlimited, and even retracting any protections for children who are born alive from a botched abortion, which is not just virtual infanticide, but literal infanticide, and wants to prosecute pro-life protesters in ways that, look absurd compared to the kinds of prosecutions that occurred during the BLM riots.
We're about out of time, Robert. Excuse me for interrupting you there. But yeah, absolutely. Bottom line here, 2 considerations when you're going to go to the polls, especially when it relates to the presidential election, is how much good can I do by voting for a candidate, and how much bad or evil sometimes, as Robert just can I stop by voting for a candidate. Those are 2, I think, equally valid considerations when going to the polls. How much good can you do? How much evil can you stop with your vote for whoever the president of the United States will be? And I agree with everything Robert has said here. Robert, people want to read your blogs, follow you, know more about Wesley Biblical Seminary. What do they need to do?
Well, they can follow my Facebook and also my time on X or Twitter. I do have an older online site, but needs to be updated.
Okay. And how do you spell your last name, Robert?
Gagnon, Gagnon.
We were talking about that. Is there any other pronunciation of that? French,
the old
maybe?
French pronunciation would be Gagnon.
Yeah, that's what
we bow to the pressures of the English-speaking world.
Well, Fred's from Nova Scotia, and he used that pronunciation for your name. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it very much. God bless you.
God's blessings.
Hey, Robert Gagnon joining us there.
Excellent piece.
Absolutely. We shall return with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
If God could speak, what would he say? The Bible subjects itself to historical verification.
He says, we saw this. We go to the Bible wanting to hear what the living God has to say to us.
When God speaks, what does he say?
The God who speaks. Visit stream.afa.net. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Israel and Hezbollah trading more strikes across the Lebanese border. Trey Yingst reporting from Haifa.
Hezbollah firing more than 120 rockets into northern Israel today. At least 4 people were injured by shrapnel just north of our position here in the city of Haifa. The barrages came after Israel struck numerous targets in Lebanon overnight. In the Lebanese capital of Beirut, at least half a dozen buildings were taken down by Israeli airstrikes. The exchange of fire came as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Qatar for meetings about a possible ceasefire in the Middle East, specifically between Israel and Hamas. Inside Gaza, Israeli troops are pushing deeper into the northern part of the Strip, and an Israeli airstrike on the Nusayrat camp reportedly killed around a dozen people. Civilians are among the dead, according to local health officials.
Russian President Vladimir Putin convened about 24 countries, including China and Iran, to discuss a new world order free from Western dominance. Jackie Heinrich pressed John Kirby on providing Ukraine more artillery.
Why not greenlight the long-range missiles for Ukraine's use, which is Zelensky's #1 ask, as you're sounding the alarm about what could have far-reaching implications if North Korean soldiers go into Ukraine?
Well, for one thing, Jackie, we don't exactly know what these guys are going to do.
What else could they be there for?
We don't know what they're going to do. We don't know if they're going to deploy into combat or not. We don't know if they do and what strength. We certainly don't have a sense of what capability they might be able to bring to the field with them.
Doesn't this seem though like we were a couple years ago? They were staged. You had Russian troops staged on the Ukrainian border, and this administration was saying we don't know if they're going to go in. We don't want to impose any sanctions. We didn't do it ahead of time.
No.
Why is there not a consequence first?
Well, first of all, let's not rewrite history, Jackie. We were the first country to go out publicly and say, here's what we think the Russians are going to do. Here's the timeline.
About it.
That is not true.
Florida's Attorney General filed a complaint against the DOJ over allegations that it's blocking their investigation into the second assassination attempt against former President Trump. Ashley Moody says it's a suit they wanted to avoid, but it has become necessary.
A little over a month ago, when that second assassination attempt happened, if you'll remember, Governor DeSantis was very clear. He wanted Florida to move forward with an independent investigation of state crimes, working with the federal government, of course, but he felt that was in the best interest of this state, our sovereignty, and for the American people, as there are concerns that the same federal agencies investigating the assassination attempt are the ones that are seeking to go after and prosecute the president, the victim in this case.
A couple of mainstream media outlets have been caught asking genuinely tough questions of Kamala Harris and her running mate, Tim Walz.
Democrat vice presidential candidate Tim Walz went on The View and made a claim about manufacturing jobs under Donald Trump. CNN's Daniel Dale reacted to the statement.
We know Donald Trump lost more manufacturing jobs than any president in American history. Yep. That's simply factual.
Well, if you're going to say something is simply factual, it should be factual. This is not.
Over on NBC, Kamala Harris sat down for what should have been a cakewalk with Hallie Jackson. But Jackson pressed the Democrat presidential nominee on a couple of issues, including when she noticed Joe Biden's mental faculties were slipping.
And you never saw anything like what happened at the debate night behind closed doors with him? It was a bad debate. People have bad debates. But that's the reason why you're here, and he's not running for the top of the ticket. Well, you'd have to ask him if that's the only reason why.
It's as if the mainstream media woke up one morning and realized they'd been scamming the American people for years and wanted to make things right. But MRC's Bill D'Agostino says Dale and Jackson were making obligatory gestures to do their best impressions of journalists.
The entire rest of the interview, it felt to me, was very much like watching a parent walk their child out to the school bus.
He says nothing has really changed with the mainstream media, and viewers know it.
Every time that trust in the media is pulled, it's at a record low, right? And so it sets a new record every time it is pulled, and that's true of the most recent instance as well, where only 7% of Americans said they completely trust mass media.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Election Night Coverage 2024 on American Family Radio. AFA President Tim Wildman, Vice President Ed Vitagliano, News Director Fred Jackson,
Wesley will be here, Walker will be here,
and the American Family News team bring you election returns and analysis from a Christian perspective.
We'll be up here for 5 or 6 hours.
Yes.
On Election Night beginning at 6 Central. It's Election Night Coverage 2024 on American Family Radio. Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim Wildman here with Fred Jackson and Steve Paisley. Jordahl joins us now. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
So, fellas, we were talking, it's countdown to election. What are we, 10 days now?
12 days.
12 days.
Mm-hmm.
Countdown to election day. And I mentioned an hour, 45 minutes ago or so, I think Trump's going to win. And people might say, why do you say that? Well, because I feel like it. You know, no, I'm just kidding. Remember when we were kids, that's the answer you give to some, because I just feel like it. Well, I have reasons to believe this. Now, first of all, and Walker pointed this out to me, Walker Wildman, and he got it from somewhere, and I've seen this analysis by others on these political sites. So I say I think Trump's going to win for this reason. if you at this very stage of the election, I'm talking about 12 days out. In 2016, Hillary Clinton was showing up as winning the swing states by 5 points, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
5 or 6 points. You remember this?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In 2020, it was the same thing with Biden. He was winning in the polls 4, 5, 6 points.
And we know Democrats lost both of those elections.
You just stole my thunder, Steve.
I'm sorry.
I set the whole thing up so I could knock it out of the park. I put the ball on the tee, and then you pushed me away, and you hit the ball out. Because you wanted credit, Steve, and it's a bad human nature trait that we all have to contend with. Now, you got it right. The reason. So therefore, got a therefore. Therefore, if you go on 16 and go on 20, as I've just defined it, and you look at the polls right now, Steve, right today, Trump and Harris are virtually tied in all the swing states, with Trump leading in most of them by 1 point or so.
Yeah.
So that says if the under-polled Trump voter is out there, like it happened in 16 and 20, Trump's going to win all those swing states, or at least enough of them to win the election.
I just wanted to be an election denier one last time.
So
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Does that make sense, Fred?
Well, it makes sense because you go back in history, as you've done, 16 and 20, and now you look at where we are today. If you go to Real Clear Politics, we references that a lot, and you look at what's happening. Wall Street Journal out today with Trump up 3 points nationally. CNBC.
That's huge. That's a national survey. They're all swing states.
Yes.
I don't remember the last time a Republican led in a national poll, Hardy, because there's so many Democrats in New York and California.
Yes. A CNBC poll has Trump up by 2 points today, this morning.
Wow.
So the trends are all in Trump's favor.
Right.
That's why I think you're seeing the desperation set in the Harris camp, and they're trying to throw the dirt. See if they throw the mud, see if any of it sticks. But I agree with you, Tim. I think the vast majority of voters have made up their minds already. And I think the big issues are the economy and the border security. Those are the two big things.
I have my list of 4 big things, but go ahead, Steve.
I am a sports fan. I love watching sports on TV. It'll connect here in a second. And I love a good pregame show, where they talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the offenses, the defense. But eventually, I want to get to the game, and it feels like we've been in about a year-long pregame show for this election.
Yeah,
I'm ready to
true.
get there. I am just ready to get there.
I hear you, brother. So I have my list of 4 things I consider the 4 top issues, and this is my order of priority. Okay. So you may have a different one. You guys may have a different order, but I think we're going to be similar on our priorities. But so I'm going to give you my 4. You may give me my 4. You start with number 4.
Yep.
That way we lead up to number 1.
There
Everybody
you
wonders
go.
what is number 1. Number 4 is the economy. For me.
Okay.
The economy is number 4. It's hugely important. It impacts the whole country. I understand that, but I'm going to get to my the ones that I consider more important.
These are let me just clarify. These are your priorities for voting, or what you think the country is thinking?
No, me.
Okay.
Me. The country's not. Economy is probably going to be number 1 for the country. For me, it's number 4.
Okay.
Because I think, by and large, the United States economy is on autopilot. I don't think a president affects the economy that much. I do think Biden hurt the economy with his closing of these. It made gas prices skyrocket for a year or 2 because he was attacking fossil fuels. So I do think the Republicans, generally speaking, are better for the economy. But I'm just saying, okay, so economy is number 4. Number 3 for me is the United States relationship to Israel, with Israel. Biblically and spiritually and as our friend and partner forever in the Middle East, Israel. They've been under siege from terrorists. And if Harris gets in there as president, our friendship with Israel will be broken.
Yep.
She is for the other side.
Yes.
Okay? She thinks what Israel is doing in response to Hamas is genocide. She said that the other day, right? Did she not?
Yep.
I'm not misquoting her.
Mm-mm.
She, so I don't know if she did. I don't think she said it explicitly like that. But a guy was in her audience.
She said it's real.
A guy was shouting in her audience that she was speaking, and he said it's genocide. And he was escorted out, I think. And she said what he's talking about is real. Is that true?
Yes.
And she wasn't saying Israel. She's saying is real.
And Biden gave all that money. That Iran have all that money.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
She's VP. So that's number 3 for me. Economy's 4. Our relationship, the United States relationship to Israel, is extremely important. And also, just as a side note, the holy sites are there,
right,
for Christians. And if you want to see those destroyed, and for Jews too, and for Muslims,
yep,
there's the Dome of the Rock. You know, number 2 for me is the border. Number 4 is the economy. Number 3 is Israel. Number 2 is the border. The border is we talk about that ad nauseum. The border is a big deal. You're going to have to close down the border. We got to get law and order back with our immigration policies. Trump and Vance are the only people that are going to do that. The other, Harris and Biden, Harris and what's his name, Walz,
yeah.
They don't believe in borders. They might say they
Odd
do.
that a guy named Walz doesn't believe in a border, but
duly
yes.
noted, Steve. That's
Yeah.
a good point. That's why we hired you. All right, and number 1. So number 4 is the economy. Number 3 is Israel. Number 2 is the border. This is for me personally. I'm not judging you. If you have a different set of agenda. Number 1 for me, and it always has been, for whoever is elected president, is the judges. The Supreme Court and the Supreme Court of the United States has an enormous impact on our country. Also, federal judges across America. I've said this before. As far as the universe goes, there's God Almighty, and He alone is Lord of the universe. But you get down here to planet Earth, humans, the most powerful people on the planet, or at least in the United States, are federal judges. Even more so than the president. The Supreme Court and other federal judicial appointments, including appellate court appointments, are enormously important. The reason is we can pass good laws in the red states in particular, but if they're struck down by federal judges, if we have far-left federal judges, we're going to have a far-left country before long.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get Harris and Walz in there, you're going to have far lefties being appointed to federal judges, including the Supreme Court. So, Trump proved really good on judges during his 4 years as president, and he would again. I'm convinced he would be a good president in terms of appointing judges that follow the Constitution and are relatively conservative. And really, conservative doesn't even mean anything in respect to judges in this respect. Do they follow the Constitution or not? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Do they try to make law from the bench?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and one last thought on that. Listen, federal judges, including Supreme Court justices, presidents come and go. These judges lifetime appointments. Lifetime appointments. They can go for 20, 30, 40 years sometimes. I don't know. I can't think of an example of a 40-year judge, but I mean they could if they're appointed when they're 35 and they retire when they're 75. That's 40 years. So the judges outlast the presidents. So anyway, that's my priority list. Go ahead.
I would add one too, and freedom of speech. I think freedom of speech will be in jeopardy.
think that's related to the judges, but yes, I understand. Our constitutional First Amendment protections are going to be at jeopardy if the liberals get in.
And I say there's great proof of that from the 4 years we've had of Biden and Harris.
Yeah.
They weaponized the Justice Department.
Yeah.
They weaponized the Justice Department against parents in Virginia.
Yes.
Who showed up at meetings concerned about a transsexual being allowed in girls' washrooms. And they were listed by the Attorney General, these domestic terrorists, basically, these parents. I think what we saw with the pro-life protester who FBI agents show up at his house, surround his house with weapons to arrest him. What did he do? He showed up at a abortion clinic in Philadelphia.
Didn't do any violence or anything.
No. Understand. And it's very interesting. I'll go back to something that Kamala Harris said the other day when that guy showed up and said Jesus is Lord. Remember what she said?
Yeah.
You don't belong here.
Right.
You belong at another rally down the street. I think she's very hostile to biblical Christianity. Very hostile.
Oh, yeah.
And the use of the term over and over again of the Biden administration, Harris, of misinformation. They dismiss anybody who disagrees with them, misinformation.
Right.
I believe they'll go after social media if social media is expressing a point of view. Why do you think Biden and Harris hate Elon Musk and the mainstream media? Because now he's produced a platform that is he's very conservative. So that's another issue. So I think to go back to what our interview was just before the break, I think Christians have to understand that our freedoms are in jeopardy. I believe they'll come after organizations that have conservative points of view.
They will. Yeah.
They will find a way. So this is a critical election, and the proof is in what we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, that's my number one as well. I would use the key word authoritarianism.
Yep.
It goes under all the social media, censorship, the weaponization of the government, and they are coming after. The weaponization is not going to stop with Donald Trump and Elon Musk and the higher ups.
Nope.
They're going to come down to as I was hearing something about AI. The IRS is able now with AI to look into everyone's bank account, no matter how small of a fry you are and that they have no qualms about holding you to account if you don't pay your taxes correctly, which it's their job. But the fact that they can access your bank account without your permission, just through AI searching the web and being able to decipher all that information, those are things that scare me.
Do they have to have a subpoena?
No, they don't know. No, they don't. Because it's not that they are actively they do actively look at accounts, but the information is just there. AI, the ability for AI to.
Does the bank know?
They might. I don't know what you. It's not that they're not hacking a computer.
The reason I'm asking you that, and if you don't know the answer, that's okay. You can find out later. I understand the privacy issues, and they're very real. I'm trying to say, what do you call it? Artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Can be used by the Internal Revenue Service to spy on your bank account.
That's what I'm hearing.
Okay. I want to know, do you have to have a subpoena to do that? And number two, is the bank notified? Does the bank know what's going on? If the bank doesn't know, it's notified. I don't know how you access it. You know what I'm saying?
I think you would be shocked at the amount of personal information that's out there on individuals.
Yep.
I'm acquainted with somebody whose job it is to investigate people who want to open up bank accounts. It is absolutely amazing what they can get out there. That's out there, information on your background, where you do business, all of those sorts of things. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, go ahead, Steve.
One of the stories I was going to bring in, I don't think we're going to get to it, but Act Blue, the Democrat PAC that raises money for Democrats, is under investigation in Congress. That is said that they are making donations in people's names without their knowledge. So it wouldn't be, it would be we're donating in Tim Wildman's name. It's not coming out of your bank account, but yet they're doing it in your name. It's illegal. But one of the articles I had a website where you can go and check to see if your donation, if that has happened to you. You type your name in there, and if ActBlue has used your name, you'll find it. I typed my name in there, and within a second, every political donation that I've had, which isn't a lot, and Tim, I typed your name in there, and I found 2 of your donations, and it took me literally it took literally 5 seconds for that information to come up. So it's just there.
That's the brave new world we live in. It's
pretty scary.
Well, I don't even have Facebook or anything like that, but yeah, the information you can find out instantaneously is like.
Someone used to have to go through and check all that.
It's surprising, quite frankly, that people's identity isn't stolen more than it is. There's identity theft's a big problem.
Anymore, it's the anonymity of the fact that you're one among millions of people. Unless you stand out because you're super rich or you're super influential, what are the chances that they're going to get your identity? But
the bad guys do. They get average people's identity and then open up bank accounts, and you hear these horror stories. We had one of our colleagues here that had his wife had her her bank card used 3 times in 1 year.
Yeah.
What am I trying to say? Stolen, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy out there. But anyway, go ahead. Next story.
All right. We need to get to this. I know you guys were talking earlier last hour about the comparisons of Hitler and that everybody's calling Trump Hitler. Well, a deep dive by the Babylon Bee has come up with 9 reasons why Trump is like Hitler, and I'd like to give these to you. So this is breaking news. Did you know that Mein Kampf is German for the art of the deal? Don't look it up in the dictionary. It just trust me on that. 2, both were called Hitler by their political opponents.
Okay.
Go think about that. If you rearrange the letters in Trump, eliminating the U, M, and P and adding H, I, L, and E, it does spell Hitler. And both briefly worked at McDonald's. You didn't know this, but Hitler liked to serve up a 9-piece chicken McNuggets meal. Adam just groaned. And they have the same exact mustache. Trump's is blonde, so you can't see it. And World War II and January 6th were basically the same. We all know that. So the comparison, the deep dive, the comparison is real.
That's not working from
you
the
don't think it is?
Well, some funny stuff there. I'm just saying that the calling Trump Hitler and hoping that's going to move the needle is not working for the Democrats.
Right.
No. Did y'all see the meme? I think that's what you call it. And it had Trump, and he was looking up at the Golden Arches.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, he's looking up at the Golden Arches because he worked at McDonald's fries.
Yeah, for a half hour the other day. Yeah.
So, and he's looking up there, and the Mac had been taken off.
Yeah, someone painted over the Mac.
Donald's.
Just says Donald's. That was funny.
I saw that. That's great.
That was funny. I don't think the left's hyperbole, is that what you call it, against Trump, calling him Hitler and all that stuff, that's just not working with people.
And it's not working because the people don't trust the mainstream media.
Right.
That they're all in for the Democratic Party.
He's not Hitler.
No, he's not.
Hitler, it's just thrown around. That name is just thrown around.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it does a great disservice to the people who lived through that era, because Adolf Hitler, he was a mass murderer. 6 million Jews were sent to the gas chambers. Hitler got into a world war, killing a lot of people in the surrounding countries in Europe. We all know this story. Americans died because of Hitler. So my point is, for you to just throw around the name Hitler and put it with a president you don't agree with because he has a ideology that you don't, but that's, see how they do that?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It's a loaded term. And by the way, did you realize that the original Antifa, the original anti-fascists, stormed the beaches at Normandy?
Yeah.
And they're using terms like fascist. But here's the problem. The other problem for the Democrats is Donald Trump's already been president for 4 years.
Right.
Yeah.
He could have, all the things
I know.
they're warning us about.
If he was Hitler, he would have shown it, right?
If he was a fascist, he would have shown it the first 4 years.
I know.
He's the worst
They're
Hitler
just
ever.
trying to scare people.
Yes.
I guess the people who are left to scare. I just think people have made up their mind. You could vote tomorrow, and it's not going to change anything between now and 12 days.
Yeah.
These stories about groping and all this stuff's not going to move the needle, Fred.
No, and the early voting, there's records being broken.
Yeah.
Even in western Pennsylvania that just went through that horrible hurricane damage, the numbers for
Western Pennsylvania, North Carolina.
North Carolina, I'm sorry. The numbers showing of early voting is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and you know they're breaking for Trump.
Yes.
You know they are, and the Republicans. Also, I was looking last night, gentlemen, and I do use that term lightly, and that is there are 3 Senate seats that the Democrats have incumbents running that they should be comfortably ahead, and they're not.
That's right.
Pennsylvania is very close between McCormick and Casey.
Yes.
Casey, the Democrat, McCormick, the Republican. That's a very close race. You got the race in Wisconsin between Tammy Baldwin, the incumbent liberal Democrat, and I forgot what's the fellow. He's Montana.
Montana. Okay.
Which state?
He's Montana. I'm talking about Wisconsin. Who's a Republican?
Oh.
See, his name escapes me. Anyway, that is very close. And then there was another one. There was a third one that the Democrats should be winning handily. That is close. Is it Sherrod?
Sherrod. Sherrod Brown.
Sherrod Brown.
Okay, I'm talking about the one in Ohio.
Isn't
there a Democrat incumbent in Ohio, Sherrod?
Yes.
Sherrod Brown is a Democrat.
Okay, my
in
bad.
Ohio.
Well, that person is being challenged, and it's a very, very close race, and you wouldn't think it would be. We'll be back tomorrow with Trivia Friday. Have a great afternoon, everybody.